Welcome back to the MetaMinds podcast, where we help you master your mindset. My name is Dan. I'm a fully qualified counsellor.
And my name is Eamon, and I'm a full-time videographer.
And on today's episode, we have got our 1-year review of how running a podcast will change your life. This is a big one that we've been thinking about for a while, and we decided to really dive into it today. It's a little after the 1-year mark.
Yeah, we missed our birthday by about 3 months.
Yeah, we're a little late, but it's fine. We're here now. And as we've mentioned in previous episodes, we are Audible affiliates. So there will actually be a link in the description below to sign up to Audible and get a free book on us, basically. So it's a really good deal, win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I've been listening to heaps of good stuff. So if you want some recommendations, just hit me up on Instagram and I'll point you in the right direction.
Perfect.
Cool. So how a podcast will change your life. We're going to go over some of the things that have happened since day one of starting a podcast. Like if you don't know our story, you can go to Our Story episode where we kind of figure out how we decided to just magically come up with a podcast and execute it, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And here we are more than a year later. And as you said, we're going to do this episode previously, but I think the wisdom we've gained in the last 3 months is going to add to this episode. So stick around. It's it's basically about how creating content, how being creative and consistent and stuff is actually going to really help your life, whether or not you have a big goal or not. So where should we start, Dan?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Maybe let's just start with...
So the first thing is we've made, about 50 episodes in a year?
Yeah.
And, realistically, that's a pretty solid amount for, I think, us both having very busy schedules and this essentially being more of a passion project for us. It's crazy some of the opportunities that have come up with us just kind of grinding on this thing over the year. But, if we're talking about how a podcast will change your life, I suppose, what are some of the things that have really stood out to you that have helped you develop or helped you change and grow in the last year with this project specifically, Dan?
So firstly, I would probably say having someone to work with, working with you and having someone that keeps me accountable and someone that, you can inspire, either I can inspire you or you can inspire me to continue the process, whether that is connecting with more people, finding guests. Instead of just having it all on your shoulders, it's lovely to actually be able to share that, it's always been passion projects I've done on my own. So it's a unique experience to do it with someone else. And that's something that probably stood out the most. Yeah, the thing that stood out the most in the first couple of episodes. Now I'd prefer to do it on my own.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, it's killing my vibe. We should cut it here.
Meta mind.
No, so we do have our own podcast. No, so just on that, I think part of the things that actually helped that was that it was kind of a project that we were already, it was something that did involve both of us. I don't really know how that kind of assists people, but it's I think what the average podcast goes for 13 episodes or whatever and then cuts off. And it's there's however many podcasts, but it's most of them kind of stop at 13 episodes or whatever. And we kind of made a joke, we'll never do that or whatever. But I think a huge part of the reason we've gotten so far and are still continuing the passion and we have a clear vision for how we're moving this forward is because there is two people. And that's part of kind of the point that you mentioned is that it's way easier when you have a creative project and you're working with a person that is on the same level as you, because you can, it teaches you communication with that person. It's pretty easy between us, but it's we have gone through some struggles and, you can check out our struggles episode as well. If you want to know more about that, but it's it's been, it's been a journey in terms of communication, collaboration. And I think we wouldn't be where we are today if it was just one of us. And we've mentioned that quite a lot. It's it makes it that much easier. It's harder because you have to communicate and you have to make sure you're on the same level and you're all doing the same things and keeping each other accountable. But it's easier in that, you do all of your work on particular socials. I do all the video stuff. We split up the work and there's no way we would have done it all with video and everything by ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. It would have been even more of a barrier.
Motivation as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I suppose this can move on to the next point. Is that both of us have a lot of different creative projects, right? You have YouTube, I have YouTube, I make music, you're a counselor, we try and fit a lot into our life. And we also have this podcast. And something that I've noticed that's helped me a lot is that, when some of my other creative projects maybe aren't thriving as such, or maybe this one I'm not, I'm switching between, I'm spending more time on another thing. It's, again, great to have another person there to kind of help keep you motivated. Or when some of my other projects aren't doing super well or, I'm just on that low of the wave, it's always good because I've got this other thing that I'm working on, which kind of can kick my creativity back into gear.
Definitely.
And then it's if I am feeling a bit down and then you're yeah, dude, we just got, this just happened or whatever. It's that's the other part of the vibe that really makes you go, oh yeah, and it's a pick you up.
Definitely.
It's not just you motivating yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And also the fact that you and I actually set a 1 week schedule. So it's like, we are going to be doing this every week. That's the plan. We set to that. And for the most part, we've been very consistent.
Besides when we travel and stuff like that.
Well, that's it. And like you said, like just to add on to that point, sometimes it's hard to get the motivation to make a YouTube video on my own. I've been doing it for so long, and still to this day, it's like, okay, well, I need to figure out what to do there kind of thing.
Because you suck at it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And it's like, I can't fix that, like I suck at it. Yeah, but it's just interesting because it's the additional layer of, like you said, support, accountability, and also that creative energy, so we can talk about our own projects even while we're here. Like, yes, we're doing a podcast, but before this, we may talk about, what you're doing with your stuff and how I'm going to be doing a video this week. And in turn, it's like fostering a creative environment as a whole. Like, I wouldn't be seeing you outside of the podcast. Like, I wouldn't want to hang with you. So it's like, that forces us to be together,
This is mostly just an episode where we shit talking each other, isn't it? That's fine.
Basically,
this is how we get our frustrations out.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's probably one of the biggest things for me is actually just having guests on board. Like having really motivating, obviously, inspiring huge, guests. Yeah. Like that is the thing that motivates me. There have been so many times that we've done an episode and then after I've just felt so unbelievably energized. Yeah. Like so energized and creative.
Especially when it's like, and this happens with our guests, which, may be smaller in terms of their achievements, but then also some of the guests that have been much larger, which like come on and it seems like they just like impart, like throw up this huge amount of knowledge on us and they leave and we're kind of like, what just hit us? And we're like on this up where we're like, like we're doing the right thing, and it's like at the very least, if we're not helping anybody else, this is a journey where we're actually, it's a self-development podcast. We're developing ourselves in that we get to talk to people that have achieved different things, learn from their mistakes, learn from what they're doing. And as you've mentioned to me in the past, when you happen to go back, find yourself on one of the episodes, you're like, this is awesome. Because it's like this conversation that you already had, but it reminds you of like, that's right. This is what I should be doing or whatever. So it's like, you're right on that one. I don't know why that wasn't our very first point.
For sure.
Is that it's like, it's really cool to, have a lot of different guests, meet new people. And also, nobody said no. If we're talking about the audience here, reasons why podcasts will change your life. If you want to get in touch with people and you're trying to, get into a niche or a field and you reach out to someone, like we haven't had anyone say no, bugger off.
Yeah,
everyone's been like, yep, when do you want to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I think another thing, like if we're trying to mention like things for like actionable content for people out there listening, it's also probably the least resistance when it comes to barrier of entry. Like all you need is a phone with a microphone, technically, to start.
Not even a microphone,
just a phone, literally. Yeah. And what I mean, is like an inbuilt microphone. So most phones would have a decent mic.
I would hope so. They're using a Nokia.
Yeah. And you'd be fine. Like the other day I was talking to a guy in the sauna, which I've told you about this. He was telling me a lot about running a podcast and how he wanted to start doing it. And we had a chat about the process, and after it he told me he felt a lot more like eager to jump into it, because previously he was thinking, I want to do video, I want to really push it out there, I want to do this, and it was like overcomplicating it. And I basically told him like, hey man, how about we start at just posting based on you recording on your phone, like just having a conversation, like that's you starting your brand basically. And it can be as simple as that, and it gives you the power to then distribute it. And again, more actionable content that you can look into Anchor or Podbean or Castbox, or all of these services have distribution offerings so that you can distribute it to all of the platforms. So there's no like runaround really. You just put it up and it's ready to go. Like the barrier to entry is so small, where other platforms or other things you might want to get into could take a lot more time, a lot more editing, a lot more energy. So yeah, that's another positive I think, and why it would change your life, because it's probably one of the easiest creative outlets, purely if you're doing audio. Obviously, if you're doing video like we are, it's another layer, but just audio.
There's different levels of it, is the thing. We take a lot of care in our post-production, if you haven't noticed. And if you have, leave us a review on iTunes, because it really, really helps, or like on YouTube. But yeah, you can literally just do it on your phone. And in fact, I listen to billionaires that have podcasts who just do it on their phone. So you don't have to do all this crazy stuff in post. So to build on that though as well, I know a lot of people that potentially want to put out content, want to express what they're talking about, like, express their opinions, or, potentially talk to other people. Because it's such a low barrier to entry, if you're trying to become some kind of content producer, put yourself out there in any means possible, whether it's YouTube or anything, as you said, it's so easy. that you can just start like right now after this podcast, you could create a podcast, even if 0 people listen to it. And again, that was our expectations. We didn't start this for anybody else. It just so happens that now it's building on that. It's like, I guess what I'm saying is if you're afraid of putting yourself out there, this, as you said, has the least amount of like hurdles to jump over. You can be like, let's just take step 1, record a podcast, chuck it out. Oh, that felt really good.
Exactly right. Yep.
Oh, I want to see what episode 2 looks like. And then all of a sudden we're at episode 50 and we're like fired up because we're like, yes, can't believe that, So it's like if you're scared about putting yourself out there, again, podcast is one of the easiest things that you can kind of jump on.
Definitely. And plus there's that whole element of you don't have to worry about what the video looks like. You don't have to worry about what you look like. You can literally be sitting in your pajamas in bed and go, actually, I want to talk about this. And then literally grab your phone, record and upload it. And it's there for the world to listen to, or just for a few people, or just for yourself as a reflection tool.
Yeah.
Like you can just use this as a reflection tool.
That was my next point.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, we have talked about over the last, 6 months or so, diary and how we should be diarying and how we should be writing things down. And there are hurdles to that where it's like, oh, I just can't see myself doing that or whatever it may be. But this seems to be the medium, which is easy for us to express ourselves. And so again, it's like if you're scared about putting stuff out there and that kind of thing, it's like a personal diary. And it's like, it is scary because sometimes, we look on older content, it's like, that's really raw and that's really, we're saying some like real stuff. But it's like, I think even in 30 years, it's like, I'll look back and be like, yeah, that guy didn't really know what he's talking about. But in that moment, he was raw and authentic and doing what he thought was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, as a reflection tool, it's like a journal, but you're just talking. So it's kind of like you can let all the thoughts out of your mind. And I think that is a huge self-development tool because it's like, especially if you have a second person to do it with.
Definitely, yeah. And to kind of build on that point, it's something I really wanted to mention, and I guess it kind of transitioned perfectly. I started using live casting through Castbox, right? So there's a service through Castbox.
Dan comes out on his addictions.
and also Podbean. We're actually live streaming right now on Podbean.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone on Podbean. So it's another option. So you've got Castbox and Podbean. There are a few others out there. Podbean is the one I'm using right now, which is integrated through the podcast as well. So an additional layer of promoting your podcast as well as just having a raw tool to reflect on whatever and talk to the community live. And the thing that's so amazing about these two services, Castbox and Podbean, you can have people call in and you can also have people directly type to you. So this can be throwaway content. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to stay on the internet forever. It can be a moment. You can capture a moment where something unique happens with whoever's listening, and they can be random people all over the world. And I've got a story of when I was doing a live cast until 4 a.m. with a guy called Harry. Had enough Harry.
Done that a couple of times.
Done that multiple times. But on this one occasion, I was like, okay, I'm done, guys. I need to go to bed. Sat on my bed, and the frame of the bed broke live, and the chat just lit up, and everyone was loving it. It was one of those moments that was captured. It's not anywhere on the internet, but it was a live moment. And
well, now it is.
Well, now it is, yeah. And I will be playing that audio back right now over this. Yep. But yeah, so that for me was amazing because I used that as a therapeutic tool. Like I would jump on the live cast and I would just talk about literally whatever. Like, I'm going to go and see a friend now. These are the intentions I want to get out of what I'm going to do today. And I would just just put it out on the world stage. And for me, that was extremely powerful. And a lot of people on there, they don't actually have their own podcast. They're just doing it as a therapeutic tool. So that could potentially be a nice way to engage with people, live in the moment. And that changed my life in so many ways. Like I connected with so many amazing people. From there, they're still actually watching Meta Minds from that. And I've connected with these people live. I still have them on Instagram and Twitter, and we chat quite regularly. So it's been amazing. And I've been creating for over 10 years now, but that moment when I was on livecast and live casting through these services, I felt like more authentic and raw and just more enjoyment than I ever have from any creative process because it was so easy. There was no barrier. I didn't have to got to set up the lights. I got to edit. It was just like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
It was so powerful, man. I love that. And a lot of people resonate with that on Castbox and Podbean because that's what they're doing as well. They're just reflecting and connecting with random people.
So there you go. Like if you listen to one of our last points and you thought, I guess I still am scared about putting myself out there. That's a way of putting yourself out there without it permanently being out there. Mm-hmm. You can just put yourself out there, connect with people on the internet in the moment. Like people just jump into your chat and sometimes we'll have 100, 200 people in the chat, like just talking to us live, Mm-hmm. And that's like magical. Like when you really think about it, like what is happening right now, you know?
It's crazy.
And then at the end you can be like, boom, and you're not, live anywhere else. So that's another reason why podcasting will change your life. And that kind of does flow into, it's just flowing so well, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Vibes right now. The next one is that it's like the creative process. For example, if you are trying to hone your creative process, or if you do have a bunch of creative things that you are doing, this podcast, for example, as I mentioned, we have like a relatively lengthy post-production process. I mean, it's been great to learn about marketing, distribution of podcasts, what things work, what things don't work. If you're interested in marketing at all, I know I am fascinated by that. So it's been a development tool in that aspect. But also, I am a video creator first and foremost, and also a music creator. And a lot of the post-production workflow that I have with that, has the stuff I'm doing with the podcast, because I'm doing it every single week, it's become second nature to me. So it's like making audio sound really good and making video sound really good and cutting it all together or whatever. Then when I'm actually doing a creative project, I was going to say a creative project that matters. Like MetaVerse just doesn't matter, man.
Savage.
When I'm doing something that I want to really take more time in the post-production, a lot of the really technical things, they just become second nature and it's super easy. So that might be a lengthy point, but what I'm saying is it makes everything so much easier and quicker when you are doing other creative things, So that's been a really huge thing for me personally, and that might not apply to everybody, but I know that a lot of people would be creators of any kind, and if you're trying to smooth out anything else, when you're doing something every day, think about driving, you just don't even, you just do it, right?
Yep.
So that has really helped me, and in fact, helped me very, very recently in terms of, landing different positions and jobs. So.
Exactly. And like what I'm getting from that is you're developing a habit. So you're regularly doing something and you're taking away the decision of, hey, I'm going to film, I need to do this. Like we've mentioned, you and I are both doing this, so we keep each other accountable. So there's that social pressure of like, okay, we've both set, we're going to release this every week. So I guess we are talking about ourselves personally. If you're on your own, there are other options. You can potentially journal, you could tell friends about it, you could try to keep yourself accountable through that. But for us, it's been really powerful. And another thing I heard from that is that it's also developing skills.
Yeah.
Like you're developing skills in potentially like editing regularly, marketing. And another big thing, which I think flows on to another point, is you actually get more confident at talking and being on camera or just recording.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah, like it builds, that's a skill. You're like flexing that muscle. Talking isn't easy, or listening also isn't easy. Well, talking can be easy for a lot of people, but listening isn't easy for a lot of people. So I think that's really powerful to be able to develop that skill. And in turn, like as you start getting guests, you then develop the skill of being an interviewer, which is so weird to say because I never thought, well, I'd be interviewing people. And it's odd because like I forgot to mention it right at the beginning when we started this. When we first started though, we never even mentioned having guests. We were just like, we'll just do this, you and I, maybe guests will come at some point. But for the first, I can't even think, I think it was 6 episodes, and then we had Alex for episode 7. Or maybe it was 6, sorry. So we did 5 episodes, and then we had a guest. I didn't even think early on when we were talking that we would even have a guest. And now it's like second nature. Like, oh yeah, we've got 2 guests next week. Then we've got another guest next. Like it's just common now. And I feel a lot more confident in that space where previously it was like a bit of a hurdle. I was like, okay, I've got to get my confidence. I've got to be, interviewing someone, present for this process, try to drag some value out. And over time, it's made me more confident, interviewing and being in a conversation.
And to build onto that as well, like the amount of people, like we're not a huge podcast at the moment, right? But I'm certain that at the moment. We're looking back at this and be like, these guys didn't know what they're talking about. But I can promise you that this podcast has gotten in front of some of the right eyes, which in turn has made me a lot of money personally. So maybe we don't have particular sponsors for the podcast, and it doesn't make us a weekly cash flow or whatever. But me putting myself out there, putting myself on camera, releasing a weekly podcast, employers, clients, people care more about the things that you have to show for yourself rather than what you have written on paper. So it might be nice and safe and easy and quick to pay $50,000 to go to university and you have a little thing to write on your resume. But if you go, have you seen my 50 episodes of my podcast? That's way different thing. I'm not saying it's the same as a university degree, but now more than ever, people care about what you have to show for yourself. And so physically doing things, and then I've had clients reference those particular things. I have made a lot of money directly from making a podcast.
Exactly.
Which I only really just thought about in this moment now, but it's that is true,
Definitely.
So it's like putting, there's just so many advantages to it. Making a podcast can change your life. And if you're
exactly right,
thinking about doing it at all, please give it a shot, because it right off this episode, and then let us know. Just send us a video message on Instagram or something. Let us know if you've done it, because it's what else?
Yeah. And the other thing I absolutely love about podcasting is with other forms of creation through YouTube or through music or whatever it may be, there's a lot of focusing on a genre or focusing on a subcategory. And yes, podcasts have subcategories and genres, but the thing that I think is amazing about it is that you can actually just talk about anything. So I kind of mentioned this before about the idea of using it as a journaling tool or a reflection tool. But I think, again, for people out there who might be thinking, I think I've got something I want to offer to the world. I think I've got a skill, or I think, I'm fun on camera, or I've got a good personality, whatever it may be, I'm sure there's some amazing people out there, but they're maybe blocked by the fact that they're worried about, well, what am I actually going to do? What's it going to look like? How am I going to do that? The thing that's amazing about this is it's a personal brand that can really be anything, like you can actually just talk about anything, like just real shit. It can be whatever you want. And this guy that I was referring to before about him wanting to set up a podcast, and he was actually telling me, he wanted to speak about fatherhood, which is such a raw, interesting topic that a lot of people would resonate with. And yes, you could maybe do that on, YouTube and Instagram, but to actually flesh out something that's just general everyday things, like things that he may have learned about his kids, or things that he's learned about fatherhood or dealing with change or whatever it may be, this is the perfect tool for that. And again, you can do it at any point. You put the kids to bed, you reflect maybe on what happened, or just do it live, jump in and record what happened through the day. Literally anything is possible, where I think maybe a lot of other people have seen the way that YouTube has progressed to the point that it's competing with network cable, right? Or TV, sorry. So it looks high production. There's also crap on the internet as well. But it's got this perception that, well, it has to be of a high quality, right? I feel like that is a thing on YouTube now. And that could be a barrier for a lot of people starting.
Away, yeah.
Where a podcast, there's nothing that necessarily needs to stop you from doing that.
As you said, iPod headphones, iPod, is that even a thing anymore? iPhone headphones, that would be the perfect enough mic.
Exactly right, yeah. Exactly right. So it's exciting, and it's a really good time to jump into it. Podcasts are only getting bigger at the moment. There's more integration with, technology, cars, smart home things. Everything is integrated and optimized to run a podcast on it. People are using it more than ever.
Audio, it's coming
it's so important.
It's in the mainstream now. And a few years back it wasn't, but now it's pretty much, everyone knows what a podcast is. Whereas I think even a year ago, it's maybe not a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, but it's not everyone would know what a podcast is or where to find and listen to a podcast, But now when you say podcast, everybody straight knows what that is because most people listen to them, So,
yeah, exactly.
And if they don't listen to them, they're not your friend. So,
no, they're not.
So part of what else you mentioned there is that it's it doesn't have to be bound by particular rules, which is really awesome. And something that I wanted to mention is that it's again, this is on the if you're afraid to put yourself out there thing, which is still a barrier for us. Sometimes it's I don't know about that, or we put an episode up and say I don't know what I said there, that was stupid. If you want to listen to me make a fool of myself, listen to some of the last couple of episodes. I've said some silly stuff and it's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that it has changed a lot over the year, right? Our vision of what it was at the start was so naive, we had no idea what we were doing, and that was part of it,
Yep.
But now, it's changed, we've pivoted so many times over that year to, it was okay, it's this now, and then it's okay, it's this now, our original tagline, which, now we laugh at because it's just so cringe, is consciousness optimization and relentless self-development. Great, okay? But it's so what do you do? So what I'm saying is even if you don't have a clear vision of what you think you want to make, start because that will come later.
Exactly.
Take that first step, take the second step, take the 10th step, and then you'll be oh, this is what it is, and this is what it needs to be. And then if you're embarrassed by the old stuff, take that down.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that, okay?
No.
Maybe we will, okay?
Yeah.
No.
But that's it, dude, and that reminds me of perfectionism, right? You think too much, and this is such a human flaw. We think so heavily about it needs to be perfect. We can't release it into the world unless it's perfect. So we will fixate on the logo, we'll fixate on the name, the slogan, all of these things that can be changed. They're not actually fixed. My original YouTube channel was called Enthusiastic Gamers XP. And I called it XP because that was the operating system I was using on my computer. Has no relevance to anything. Then I went to the iPod Touch world. Again, crap name.
Yeah.
And, it's possible to change. You don't have to be fixed and rigid and think it has to be perfect before I release it into the world. The main thing is just think about what you want to talk about. If it's just your everyday life, that is fine. You don't have to worry that, people aren't going to be captivated by it. I don't have these interesting guests on. People potentially will resonate with that more. And I've been listening to Superfans, which is one of Pat Flynn's books. And he talks about how he's in like 400 episodes now of his podcast. And
just casually.
He's had like Gary Vee, I think he's had Tony Robbins on, some massive people. They get great engagement, but it's the people who have the everyday story and the everyday struggle. They're the episodes that get more engagement than these massive celebrities and these icons, because that's what people are resonating with. So again, that kind of potentially could hopefully take some fears away from people out there who are thinking, well, I don't have the credibility, I don't have these massive guests. Like, people will resonate with you more because you are real, because you're talking about real shit that's going on. I've said real shit twice now.
Real shit.
So because it is self-doubt and perfectionism and imposter syndrome, all of these things that we've spoken about, they can really stop you from putting yourself out there. And what we're trying to say here is that us putting ourselves out there has been an amazing tool for ourselves to grow. Just for our own creative juices to keep flowing, like it's kept us accountable. And in turn, I think for me personally, it's directly affected Dan's Tube and my clothing brand, because I'm now thinking more and more about how they're going to come across and how I'm going to keep them in this brand that I'm doing with you, you know, and I'm putting more of myself out there now on Dan's Tube purely because of this podcast as well. Like, I have built confidence to talk more raw and authentic about what's going on. And yeah, to me, that's just really powerful. It's like a therapy.
Yeah.
We're talking about things. We're putting it out there. It's awesome.
And so just to, like wrap it up with the final point, I think like, as I was kind of saying, and what you were saying there is kind of like, now where it is now, we couldn't have dreamed of where it was going to be here a year ago. And now we have this vision for the future that potentially could drive a lot of revenue. And we're excited about all the different avenues where we're going to take it. You know, we're starting to get like different offers that are popping up, which are like mind blowing, because we're like, is that really happening? Or are we really getting this guest that's this big kind of thing? So it can open up crazy opportunities for you. And, you know, if you're not sold by now, like, delete the podcast and don't listen to podcasts. Self-development's not for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But yeah, so these are some of the ways that a podcast has changed our life over the last year. And I'm really looking forward to the next year of the podcast to see, so we can check in another year and 3 months, for Metaman's birthday episode 2. So happy birthday to you, Dan.
Happy birthday, mate.
Should we kiss?
No.
It was a joke. We'll wait till after.
Of course, dude, of course.
Okay, cool. So
perfect.
We'll wrap that one up.
Thank you for watching. Coming on, Eamon.
Thank you for watching.
Oh, we shouldn't actually. No touching.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Metaminds, and as I said, like, please leave us a rating on iTunes or whatever podcast app. No doubt it has a rating thing. It really, really does help us, and it fills our hearts with love for you. So it actually directly helps you.
Yeah.
So
that's massive.
Help us help you.
Yes. And also, if this has inspired you for some reason to start putting yourself out there, or you have a question for us, you can contact us on all of the social networks. It's just MetaMindsCast.
And we'd love to hear.
Just send us a video message or a message. Anything you want will be there for you.
Thanks
as
again.
well as you can be there for us. And it can be a family. We can grow together.
Okay,
Thank you for tuning in.
That's enough.
Okay, goodbye everyone.